Hello everyone, I'm Brian. Welcome back. Let's go ahead and get started.
A question from the audience here? All right, Hindal, come here. Tell us your name and then ask the question.
Hi, my name is Hindol Sengupta. My question is, if so much of what happens to us in this life is based on our past lives and the tendencies that you spoke of, what is our incentive in building a moral and ethical framework for existence in the world that we live today?
Yes.
So how do we incentivize, then why should we have a moral and ethical framework in which we operate in society as we know of today?
Right.
If I understood the question correctly, that should be pretty easy. Understand that you develop good and bad karma. So if you want to have a good, and until you become realized or enlightened, you will be born again in this body, assuming you believe in reincarnation. Then you want to make sure that in your next life that you have a good life. So you want to make sure you do good now, regardless of what happens, to continue to better your life on your next life. And on your next life, you still want to do good so that you keep moving up, if you believe in the different levels of heavens, or at the very least, by doing good, you work on your karma yoga, and if you become enlightened that way, you can stop being reborn in this life. And for me, just generally speaking, I guess it's kind of hard, but is not doing a good thing make you feel good? Like, making people happy, not necessarily doing things to an extreme, like, you don't have to go take out your life savings to give someone, but more along the lines just being simple things like opening the door, saying thank you, if they say, hey, can you grab that for me real quick, just doing something simple as that, as very nice things that makes people happy. I mean, doing something like that, does that not make you kind of happy?
Good question. A moral and ethical framework, what is the point if everything is determined by my past karma, good or bad?
What about your future?
You see, karma leads to happiness and misery. The equation is this. Karma is of two kinds, good karma and bad karma. In Sanskrit, punya and papa. These are common terms. Everybody in India knows that. Punya means good karma. Good karma is punya is produced by what you call dharma. Dharma means righteous karma. Do good things, the result of that is punya, merit.
Strange. Dharma means do good things. Hold on. Let me rewind that real quick.
Righteous karma. Do good things, the result you call dharma. Dharma means righteous karma.
Righteous karma. I've said it a few times before. Dharma, generally, I've always understood it as your duty. Do your duty. And I've heard some people say righteous actions, the right actions, good actions. But generally speaking, I've always understood Dharma to be like kind of playing your role. If your job is a soldier, you need to play that role. You need to do that role. And generally speaking, it's always meant to be in a good manner, the right manner. So Dharma means righteous karma, or does Dharma mean righteous duty? I guess it could mean all those things.
Do good things, the result of that is punya, merit. Dharma leads to punya. Good actions lead to merit. And the result of that merit is sukha, happiness, in this life and future lives. Bad karma, doing bad actions, adharma, unrighteous, consciously, knowingly doing bad things. Adharma leads to what is called papa, demerit, sin. And the result of papa is dukkha, suffering. So we get happiness and suffering. Now nobody can say, we all want happiness and we want to avoid suffering. And nobody will ask you, oh, happiness, why do you want happiness? The question itself is silly. The fundamental thing we want in life is happiness. Our definition, our understanding of happiness will differ. Somebody, I remember Sean Carroll in his book, The Big Picture. He's a well-known scientist in Caltech, and he writes, he's a prominent atheist now. A more gentle face of atheism than, say, Richard Dawkins or Daniel Dennett. but he's a very nice guy. Now, in his book, he writes that no, happiness is not really the goal. People say happiness is the goal, but a researcher doing research, he wants to discover, there's this quest for knowledge. That's the goal, not happiness, not a smiley face. But that's just short-sighted thinking. That quest for knowledge, does that make the researcher happy or unhappy?
Yes, happy.
The struggle itself may make him unhappy. Make this person, there's a lot of struggle in scientific quest, in artist, for creativity.
A lot of things.
A lot of struggle. That might generate temporary unhappiness.
Yeah, generally, anything worthwhile generally is going to be very tough and not easy, but generally the payoff is generally speaking, very good.
But the deep satisfaction of an artist's life or a scientist's life lies in this quest. So that satisfaction is happiness. Ultimately, there are some people who say that, no, I don't care for my happiness. I do altruistic things. I do things for others, not for myself. So I'm not looking for my own happiness. Well, doing things for others and making others happy, does that make you happy or unhappy? That makes me happy. So ultimately, happiness is the goal, and nobody wants misery or unhappiness. If that is so, in that case, it makes sense to do good things and not to do bad things. The moral and ethical framework, the first thing it does is, if you want a happy life, if you don't want to be unhappy, then be ethical, be moral, avoid immorality, avoid what you know to be wrong. It may be difficult, but the equation is clear. Moral action, merit, happiness. Immoral action, demerit, unhappiness. We want happiness, be moral. These bookshelves in Barnes and Nobles, you'll see self-help section filled with books, how to be happy. 7-day course, crash course, this course and that course, and how to be happy and have friends and so on and so forth. Starting from Dale Carnegie down today, there's so much. And the psychologists have gotten in on the ACT, happiness hypothesis, and so many books are there. Filled with a lot of insights. But Indian philosophy has a simple equation. Good karma leads to happiness.
Good, bad.
Karma leads to unhappiness. At least a pleasant life, unpleasant life. So that's one reason for an ethical framework, if you really want peace and happiness in your life. But a deeper reason for an ethical framework is this. The ultimate goal of life, according to Vedanta, is not to have a more pleasant life and less unpleasant life, then die, and then again have another pleasant life, and then die, and then have another pleasant life. No, it is to get out of this whole cycle of limited existence. It is to realize that you are Brahman, and that actually gives you this infinite happiness, and not this limited slice-by-slice happiness we are chasing from life to life. It ends the game of this life. So, enlightenment requires an ethical framework. Spirituality requires an ethical framework. A good person, an ethical person, need not be a very spiritual person. Can you be good without being spiritual? Actually, yes. And there are many people who are good. I saw this person who said that, no, goodness is based on God, on religion. You can't have goodness without religion. That's also a big school of thought. And I somewhat subscribe to that, though many people do not. But anyway, a philosopher put it very beautifully. You cannot have goodness without religion, some kind of religion. And the way he put it was an equation. Good, G-O-O-D, good, minus God, G-O-D, is equal to 0. You see? O-O-D, if you subtract the G-O-D, you have only 0 left and O left. So O. Good minus God. If you take God out of the good, nothing is left, only 0.
So I'm going to be pausing because of coughing. But anyway, so I'm going to make a counter argument to that. Good, G-O-O-D, minus God, G-O-D, equals 0. Or infinite. 0 has no start or end. It's a circle. There's no beginning, there's no end. It's infinite. Infinity is a different symbol, but 0 also has no start and no end.
But you can be a good person without being overtly spiritual. But you cannot be a spiritual person without being a good person. So morality, ethical life is necessary for spirituality. You hear of all these scandals in different parts where so-called spiritual persons have suddenly a dramatic fall and it's a scandal and it's all over the papers. What happened? We don't know how spiritual that person was, but certainly not ethical. The scandal is not about, oh, that person was caught not meditating. That's not the scandal. He did not achieve samadhi, the highest enlightenment of meditative trance. That's not a scandal. The scandal is an ethical failure, a moral failure. So, ethical framework necessary for a good life in this world and for spirituality. Question? Those who had questions, please hold on to your questions. I'll come back to you. Now we take a question from the internet audience.
And again, 3 questions on the subject of evil. Elizabeth asks, where does evil come from? Vedanta says there are opposites in Maya. If it comes from the mind only, how is it that sometimes you can feel something is evil? In the Catholic Bible, it often mentions evil spirits. Where do they come from?
Good and bad, good and evil. Where is this? Well, first of all, it's in our minds. It's in action. There's good action and bad action. But if you go deeper, it's the intention which really counts. And there is evil intention, malign intention, and good intention. That's in the mind. The spirit, Brahman, Atman, is not touched by this. Only thing is, if my mind is clouded by evil action, evil thought, then I'm never going to realize myself as Brahman. I have to transform the evil tendencies of the mind into good tendencies, and then only enlightenment is possible. Now, the question is deeper. Elizabeth's question is, where does evil come from in Vedanta? In contrast, in some of the Abrahamic traditions, you set up a source of evil.
Yeah. I was gonna try to answer this one. I'm kind of curious if I know it. There's perhaps... I was gonna say perhaps there's no evil or good, but there's good and bad karma. Actually, I don't know if I can answer this one. I don't know if I've listened to or watched any videos that talks about evil in Vedanta. I don't think I have, but I've heard of people doing bad actions in which results you get, what you deserve. You get your karma. But people doing bad things, where does that come from? I've never heard an answer for this one.
God is the source of good, and Satan is the source of evil. There's a separate, purely evil entity called Satan or some other. It comes from Christianity gets it from Judaism, and Judaism actually gets it from Zoroastrianism, a much more ancient form of dualistic religion, where Zarathustra, he had this intuition that there is an all good power, a power of light in this world. He called it Ahura Mazda, the god in Zoroastrian religion. In India, we know them as Parsis, the Parsis. So Ahura Mazda is the god of light. It is actually God, what you call God in religion. But there's a counterpart, Ahriman. Ahriman is the god of darkness. And there's a perpetual battle between Ahriman and Ahura Mazda for possession of our souls. Now, if that sounds familiar to Christians, it ought to be familiar, because the same DNA is there in Judaism and Christianity. So this is the idea that there is an actual source of evil somewhere. That's why you have this intuition that something is terribly wrong in this world, and that's creating evil. Whereas in Maya, and we have to suffer for this evil because of our sin. And this sin is not only does not start with us, it traces it all the way back to the first created man, Adam and Eve, the concept of original sin. In Vedanta, we don't recognize sin as fundamental. You said that you just talked about papa, sin. That's a consequence of bad action, but it's not fundamental. It can be overcome by good action. But what is fundamental, according to Vedanta, is ignorance. Vivekananda in this country, he used shock therapy. He said, sinners, it's a sin to call ye sinners. You are children of immortal bliss. You are Brahman. You are Atman. You are existence, consciousness, bliss. Then what is the problem? You don't know it. In Vedanta, this not knowing is called ignorance. You don't know what you are. So what happens then? Not knowing my fullness, not knowing my infinitude, This ignorance, the next result, the next product of this ignorance is desire. I am full, I am infinite, I do not know it, but I am haunted by a desire for fullness, for satisfaction, for infinity. We are all haunted by a desire for infinity. I remember when I became a monk, somebody asked me, one of my classmates, why do you want to become a monk? You don't want anything, in the good things that life has to offer, you want to give up everything? I said, on the contrary, I want to become a monk because I want everything. Not just one thing or two things or three things, not just what you want, some money, some success in life, some relationship, little slices of happiness of the world. I want everything. I want everything, alpha to omega, everything A to Z. I want to be infinite. Vedanta says we are infinite, we do not know it. Not knowing it, desire wells up within us. Unfortunately, this is the play of Maya. Desire is outward directed. I think I will be complete if I get a college degree from an Ivy League college, from Columbia, or those who are from NYU, with apologies, NYU. I will be complete. You get that, then I want a job in Wall Street, then I will be complete. Or I want this relationship, then I'll be complete. Or I want this promotion, or I want this car, or the new iPhone, then I will be complete. You don't actually say it out loud that if I get the iPhone 8, I will be infinite. No. You don't say it out loud because it sounds silly if you say it like that. But that's what is going on deep within us. One more thing, and one more thing, and one more thing, and then I'll be happy. We never are. We have not been successful in this quest till now. Till now. All our lives. 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 60 years, 80 years, we've been trying, not successful. Some people say, this is life, there's nothing more to it. That's all that there is, make the best of it. But no, you are avoiding a fact. There is something more to it. There have been people in all religions, in all ages, in all civilizations, who have claimed true, lasting peace. The enlightened people, whether Ramakrishna or Christ or Krishna or Buddha, they have all achieved this. They say it is possible. And it's possible for each one of us. That's the spiritual quest. So the problem is ignorance leading to desire, desire leading to karma. We start working, we set into motion mighty energies without knowing it. And these are the energies which whirl us from birth to death to birth to further lives to the other worlds. This is what is whirling us, the energies we have set in motion in our own desire for completion. And we will come to that completion. You cannot avoid it. It's your birthright. It's who you are. You will get it eventually. So this is the source of evil in Vedanta, this fundamental ignorance. Yes.
How I kind of understood that was we desire the infinite, but we're too ignorant to know that we are already that. So we look for the infinite in other things, only to realize it's never enough. So like iPhone 8, as he says, the college degree, the job, the promotion, we're seeking this infinite in these temporary things and never getting it, these desires. Although it's weird that he said sin, though. I mean, not him trying to explain sin or bad or evil. Evil in terms of ignorance and desire. I guess I can see that. Yeah. So when you desire, say, a promotion and someone else gets it, your desire could lead you to do something bad. Or do something bad to try to get that promotion. Okay. I guess desire encompasses jealousy as well, because people will do things for jealousy as well. Okay.
Then
So Sri Kumar asks, if the whole being is a universal Brahman / God, this also suggests the evil is also part of Brahman. Then how to define the good and the evil? By worshipping the good, am I also ending up worshipping the evil?
okay. Is that and one more?
And Deepan says, if God exists, why is there more evil than good in the world?
Well, I don't believe that. I think there's more good than evil in the world. It's just that you see evil all the evil is what gets headlines in the news. So, now, are you worshiping evil and when you worship good, you also worship evil? I wonder if he will say there's no such things as good and evil because it's merely all ignorance and desire. But then that's the source of evil. I'm not sure.
All right. Fundamental questions. We all ask them sometimes. What is the Vedantic answer to that? First is a question that if Brahman is everything, then Brahman is also evil. You are deriving it mathematically. So all is Brahman. Is that true? No. But Swami, that's what you've been telling us. No, I've never said that. Mary Hale, Swami Vivekananda's disciple, a young American girl, she writes to Swami Vivekananda in a poem that you have taught us that all is God. And he wrote back, I have never taught such strange doctrine that all is God. I've never said that. In astonishment, you said it. You even said those very words that everything is God. Swami Vivekananda said, that's not what I meant. I have never taught that all is God. What I have taught is this. God only is, all is not. Vedanta, what does Vedanta say? Vedanta really does not say everything is Brahman. It says, Brahma Satyam, Jagat Mithya, Jiva Brahmeva Napara. What does it mean? Brahman alone is real. The only reality is Brahman. And this world that we experience is mithya, an appearance, and an appearance of Brahman. It's not real in itself.
Now, no, I remember someone in the comment section making this very specific argument, and I get it, but you have to understand where I'm coming from too. Kinda, it's the same thing, but it's hard to how do I say? I guess when you say everything is Brahman, it's to acknowledge that this reality is real, versus to say that this is an illusion. But again, I still don't like that because I think, if I remember correctly, Sri Ramakrishna and Swami Vivekananda says this reality is real, which I choose to follow. I choose to believe, because to say that this is Brahman would make it a little, well, I don't know if I try to explain it to someone, I don't know if it'd make it easier to understand. But anyways, let's hear what he has to say, what Swami Vivekananda has to say about Brahman. Brahman is, this reality is not, or all is not.
And what about me? Am I real or unreal? You are real, don't worry. Because you are Brahman. You are that existence, consciousness, bliss, which is the only reality. It's said to be a non-dual reality, no second thing. There is nothing apart from it. Now, what appears in this world, people and actions and good and bad and evil. Evil is also part of the world appearance. It's not any part of Brahman. There is no place for evil in Brahman. What about the good? There's no place for good in Brahman also. Good and evil are part of our relative world. Morality is part of our relative world. Is Brahman a good boy or naughty? Doesn't apply. Brahman is neither good nor bad. It's beyond both of them. But if you want to realize yourself as Brahman, you have to go from the bad to the good to transcend both. So I'll come to you. Evil is not part of Brahman. So that's the answer to the question. Neither good nor evil are part of Brahman because both are appearances in Brahman. So it's like saying the rope is mistaken for a snake. It's a poisonous snake. So is the rope poisonous? Rope, the classic example, rope snake. You understand where I'm coming from? The very common Vedantic example. You mistake a rope for a snake in darkness, maybe. You think it's a snake. Then you realize, oh, it's not a snake, it's a rope. But when you saw the snake, it was a poisonous snake which you saw. Now, if somebody asks you, is the rope poisonous? No, it's not. There's no snake and no poison. It's a rope. So from the point of view of Brahman, there is no world, no evil, no good. There is only one infinite existence, consciousness, bliss. But the movie of the universe which plays in Brahman, oh, there is good and bad in it. There are tragedies and comedies in it. Okay. Deepan's question was that, oh, if God exists, why is there evil? Eternal question. If God exists, why is there evil and suffering? In Vedanta, evil and suffering are...
Real quick, this one was interesting. Can't remember which one I watched. It was talking about, I believe, it was the three big deities. Man, I am terrible at remembering their names. Although I do remember Brahma. The reason why I remember Brahma, Shiva, and Vishnu, I believe. This is from Sadhguru's video, actually, now that I remember. So Sadhguru talked about, I think it's Sadhguru in a way. Anyways, Shiva went to Brahma and was observing the world. It's like, why are you doing this? Why are you creating all this evil, this hatred, this nastiness, this, evilness? And Brahma said, I didn't do that. Didn't you create this world? And Brahma said, yeah, I did. And are you not responsible for this? Like, no, I gave them free will, and this is what they choose to do. I'm not here to control their life. In a sense, this is not exactly verbatim, but roughly the same. The message is essentially that Brahma created the world and gave people free will to choose what they want to do with their lives. Didn't create evil or anything like that. So let's see if that follows along the same lines here.
Are there in our relative world, and they are due to our karma.
Mm-hmm.
In Christian theology also, in a different way it is put. God gave us free will, and because of our free will, we freely exercise choices, and that leads to suffering. It's not so different from the idea of karma. But the idea of karma is much more well worked out with philosophical grounding over many lifetimes. It's a logical consequence over many lifetimes. So it's not God's fault that there is evil in the world.
It's ours.
But this thing is called the question of evil. Every religion has to answer this question.
Mm-hmm.
You know why they have to answer the question? Because when you believe in God, God is considered to be
all-powerful,
omnipotent, all-powerful, omniscient, all-knowing, and all good. God is supposed to be good, loving, benevolent.
All
now,
positives.
If a good, loving God and all-powerful God, then why is this world, the creation of God, evil? That's a justified question. It's like you love your children, and you really want that your children should not suffer. But you can't prevent it because you are not omnipotent. You are not God. You can't prevent suffering. You can't prevent your own suffering. You can't prevent your children's suffering. But imagine a father or a mother who loves us just as you love your children, but that father or mother is omnipotent, can do whatever he or she wills. Then why would that father or mother allow her children to suffer, his children to suffer? That's the question of evil. It's a logical problem. And the problem comes up only when you consider God to be good. See, is there any other kind of God? There were more primitive ideas of God. God as power. God as power. And goodness? No. Just power. In ancient Babylon, there is this story of Noah's Ark. God saw that the world was evil and he drowned the world, but he wanted the world to be started anew, and he collected 2 of each species and told Noah, here is the ship, build a ship and take them and float on the waters of dissolution of the flood, and then finally you shall repopulate the earth again. The story, the usual story. Why did God do that, flood everything? Hurricane Harvey, Irma. Why did God do that? That was a nasty thing to do. Because the answer is given there, whether you accept it or not, there's an answer to it.
Is the answer for people to realize that there's consequences to actions? Or for those who are still alive to realize there's consequences to actions?
Because of justice, God saw that man was evil, was not keeping the commandments, and so he decided to punish. From evil, punishment. That's some kind of logic, though you may not like this idea. It's not some kind of logic, but there is an older version to this story, and that's very interesting. The same story in ancient Babylonian religion, which is gone now. God was there. What kind of God? An all-powerful God, an all-good and loving God. Oh, no, no, no. Just powerful. Then what happened? People made so much noise that it disturbed God's sleep. God was annoyed that these humans are a noisy lot. Let me drown them. But he said, they can come back again. And he appointed somebody, I've forgotten the name, they're big old Babylonian names. Just like Noah, somebody was appointed, and there was a boat, and there were two of each species, and they were. It's a well-known pre-biblical story. You can see the same story, but only one crucial difference. In the Babylonian version, why did God do it? Because he could. And by the way, it was a he. Because he could. Just power. There's no. And they thought it was natural. God is. You don't expect God to be just. God is just powerful. You just have to keep the old guy in good humor. That's all. He's a crusty old curmudgeon. You have to keep him in good humor. But when the same story comes to Judaism, in the Jewish Bible, in the Torah, when the story comes, among the other stories, you find God, the same crusty old curmudgeon, has acquired a new redeeming quality: justice. And then you come a little further, a God of love. Now the problem arises. In the ancient story, the problem was not there. Question of evil. Why is there suffering in the world? Because God wills it to be so. Why would God do that? Because he can. But if you say God is loving, then the question arises. What are the answers? I will not go into it. I usually recommend a book which I liked very much. The Problem of Evil in Indian Philosophy, in Indian Thought. Professor Arthur Harman, he was in the University of Hawaii. He gives 23 answers, not one or two, 23 answers to this question. Why would a loving God allow evil in the world? He has not given those answers. He has collected the answers from all the theologies of the world, from different religions of the world, philosophies, even literature of the world. And he's got a list of 23 answers. And you know what? After examining all the answers, the only one he finds acceptable,
free will.
This is way superior to all the answers. He comes, the last one is this Indian idea of the law of karma, cause and effect. And he has a whole chapter on the defects of the law of
free
karma.
will.
Whole chapter. He says, in spite of these defects, no other theory even comes close to it in its explanatory power.
I will say that's pretty interesting. I wouldn't mind reading that book, because just curious as to see what the different religions explain how evil came into this world. Again, from that story about Shiva and Brahma. Again, Shiva was able to see the multiple dimensions of the different dimensions, because you had different kinds of Brahmas. Shiva got really mad at Brahma because of what he created in Earth, and chopped off, I believe it was the 5th head, because there's 4. And chopped off the head, and then started talking to Brahma, and I think Vishnu showed Shiva the other dimensions, and you saw Brahma with like millions of heads, 5 heads, whatever, different kinds of heads. But it's sheer fact that Brahma said, "I didn't do this to them. This is their free will. This is their choice. Maybe this is their karma."
Problem of Evil in Indian Thought, Professor Arthur Harman. All right. There were questions there. I'll come to you one by one. The lady at the back, yes. Please come up here. Yes, you. You.
You know what? I'm actually going to pause it right there. No, we'll listen to one more, actually. Sorry. One more. Hopefully it's not too long.
My name is Nabila. My question is related to the fact that we as individuals are born, and we will die and we will be reborn, right? At this level. At the universe level, I understand that the same process also applies, that the universe is created, expands, and is destroyed after, and then recreated. Can you tell us a little bit more about this, and what do these worlds could look like, and what is it?
Okay, this is actually something I thought about before hearing Sadhguru's explanation. There was 2 theories I remember when in school, that either the universe is going to forever expand, and never contract. Or the second theory, which is saying that the universe expansion is slowing down. And my thought was, if it's slowing down, is it going to come back to the center again and merge as one? And I was thinking, it's like, that's the theory I guess I hold more strongly, is that it comes back together and then it explodes. It comes back together and explodes, and every time there's an explosion, life renews itself. So we don't know, I was thinking, like, we don't know how many times Earth or us has lived in this planet, or how many different versions of intelligent life there was. And then I can't remember which Sadhguru video it was, but he explained 84, I believe it was the number. He told a scientist, like, remember the number 84. And I think the hint was the fact that maybe this universe was created and destroyed 84 times, or this is the 84th explosion of this universe.
All right. Not a small question. The creation and existence, destruction of the universe. I'll just answer this in brief. What does Vedantic cosmology say? It says there are cycles of creation, existence, and destruction. Creation is not quite the right word. Projection is a more correct word. Srishti is the Sanskrit word. Srishti, Sthiti, Pralaya. The universe is projected. The worlds come into existence. Life evolves. And the souls which are there, they get bodies and experiences. Civilization comes up and we get lots of experiences, and our karma is exhausted, new karma is generated, and the universe comes to an end after billions of years.
Karma is exhausted and new karma is created. That's very interesting. I mean, I know Sadhguru talks about burning up your karma. Swami Madanda says that there's infinite numbers of karma, you can never really burn it up, which is kind of contradictory to both their philosophies. I don't know what is the truth. I don't know if you have infinite karma, or do you have a reservoir of karma which is finite, but because of every time you're reborn you continue to build it up, but you can always become enlightened regardless of them. But this is what Swami Taramananda says, you can have all these karma, but you can wipe it completely clean once you become realized, enlightened. So perhaps maybe they're saying the same thing. So that's just kind of came to my mind when it says burning up karma and a new karma is generated.
And actually that is the time frame that ancient Indian cosmology uses, billions of years. And the universe comes to an end. That is called pralaya, the dissolution. Projection, existence, dissolution of the universe. And then God alone exists with his power of Maya. Brahman with Maya exists. Where is the universe? Absorbed back into Maya. After an incalculable period of time, it's not even time, it's timeless. Again, time, space, matter, and energy are projected. A new universe starts. And all of us who have not got enlightenment, they are all merged in Maya. They are projected back into the universe. It's a lot like every day what happens to us when we go to sleep. Universe disappears from us, our bodies disappear from my experience, and our minds disappear, even the personality. We go into a darkness, as it were, like a little death. But what happens when you wake up? Again, the world is before us. I have a body, I have mind, I'm the same person.
Joke here, guys, joke here. After this video, I'm going to have me a little death. Because I'm feeling like it. Oh, jeez, that sounds so weird.
That, imagine being thrust back into this universe again for another cycle of existence until you get enlightenment and the whole game comes to an end for you and you remain as infinite existence, consciousness, bliss. So that's the idea. And it's remarkably similar to our modern cosmological idea of, I saw this in the planetarium here in the Museum of Natural History, that how the Big Bang and creates the universe, and the universe evolves into nebulae and then stars and planets, and then life comes up, and then again there'll be when the universe begins to die, it collapses back upon itself. One theory. Another is a steady state theory, and there's a big crunch, and then again something like a Big Bang, from a singularity it comes back. Very similar. I mean, I'm not saying the ancient Indians knew this, but the pattern seems very similar. projection from a mysterious, indescribable state into a experienced universe, existence of the universe for a long time, and then collapse back again into that mysterious, indescribable state. Yeah, that's the idea. But what I'm saying here is all these are grand and very nice. Advaita Vedanta says, don't bother. Don't bother. Buddha says, don't bother. Whether this theory or that theory. Even if you know it.
Not
So
going to change
what?
anything.
Body is getting old, life is passing by, suffering and sorrow comes, and I'm destined for a sure death. The body is going to die very soon. And I go into the darkness knowing not where. Get enlightenment here and now in this life. That is the serious quest. Buddha had 14 great, it's called the great silence of the Buddha. He was silent to 14 great questions. Why? Because he did not know? No. Because he said they do not help us. One of his disciples asked him, O Tathagata, do we exist after death or not? After enlightenment, will you, after your body drops off, will you be the Tathagata, will you be there or not? Like this he asked a number of questions. So, like, is there a permanent, eternal soul? And Buddha says, did I say there was an existence after death? Oh, so there is no existence after death. Did I say there was not? It's confusing. Either there is or there is not. I am confused, O Buddha. Why are you confused? Because other teachers, there are some who teach us that there is a existence after death. Some who say there is no existence after death, the materialist would say. So they all tell us something. What do you teach? The Buddha said, suppose somebody is walking in the forest, and there's a hunter who shoots an arrow and hits this man by mistake, and he's wounded. They come to help him, and they say, we're going to call a doctor. And he says, wait, doctor, before you treat me, tell me, what was the name of the person who shot the arrow? What wood is this arrow made of? What is the chemical composition of maybe the poison which is tipped in the arrow has a tip? And things like that. Irrelevant, he asks. The Buddha said, what would you say to such a person? I would say he's foolish. He's going to die before he gets treatment. Why does he need to know all this? The Buddha says, exactly. What the Tathagata teaches is, there is suffering, there is a cause of suffering, there is an end to suffering, and there is a way out of it. Just day before yesterday, I was saying, the whole thing is, the purpose of life is God realization, and there is a science to it. Whom did I quote just now? Yes, because I just did it day for yesterday. You won't believe whom I quoted. You think, is it Ramakrishna or Vivekananda or Buddha? That the purpose of life is God realization, and there is a science to it. You won't believe who said that. George Harrison. In the 1980s, of the Beatles' fame. I was just reading a book where he says, he was very influenced by Vedanta. So the whole purpose is enlightenment. Let's pursue that. For example.
Okay. It's going on a little bit long, so I'm going to go ahead and pause right here so we can have this, I guess, a continuation for the next one. So video over with. That's very interesting. What he said in terms of what Buddha replied, I guess it's kind of true, you know. And it's something that, man, I can't remember that dude's name. I always put on the spot. Astrophysics black guy. I just remember the song. Why can't I remember his name? Anyways, he was asked a question, what was before the Big Bang? He also answers like it's irrelevant. I mean, it's nice to know, but it's not going to change anything, whether you would know this fact or not. It's not going to change anything in the present day. And in terms of kind of like what Buddha was giving an example, like, you know, he got shot with an arrow, and does it really matter who shot it, and what's the composition of the wood and the stone, and whether it had poison, and what's the poisoned? I mean, the poison, you might want to know the composition of it so you can get the antivenom, but in terms of just, you know, finding all this stuff out before you treat it, how about you treat yourself first, and then you can find it out later? And I guess this is kind of, in a sense, true to first get enlightened, and then you can ask yourself questions like, how did the universe get created? But enlightenment first. So, and the sheer fact that all of us in this world is pretty much a great example of all of us being shot with an arrow, and right now we're trying to figure out what the composition of the wood is, or not seeking a doctor to help us remove or cure this wound, the suffering arrow. So that's the thing that I thought was the fact that he gave that example about being shot with an arrow, and I guess this is an example of all of us being shot with an arrow because we're all suffering for the most part, and we're not seeking a doctor to remove the arrow because we're continuing to figure things out, I guess, in this world instead of seeking enlightenment. So anyways, that's the end of whatever part this is. If you like my content, please consider subscribing, thumbs up, thumbs down below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next vid.